Hello, I'm Blake Morgan, and this is Blake's Take, where I unpack customer experience in 3 minutes or less. And today we're talking about the mind of the B2B buyer. Here's something important. The B2B buyer is just like you and me. They use Uber. They love their Apple products. They use Google. They use Netflix. They shop Amazon. And then they go to make a B2B purchase, and the sales process is horrible. In fact, CEB did some research to describe the B2B complex selling process today, the purchase process, and the biggest reaction were words like minefield. So you see that many B2B customers actually feel like the purchase process is somewhat of a minefield. So why is it that B2B is so slow to adopt some of these customer experience practices that B2C has really started to enjoy and leverage and see results from? Studies show that only 14% of B2B companies are actually customer-centric. 14%! The point is today, we need to think about the mind of the B2B buyer. And here's a start. The scariest statistic I'll ever share with you is right here, that 59% of B2B customers actually prefer to shop online and do research on the internet rather than deal with a salesperson, because they find that the salespeople push their own sales agenda rather than listen and say, okay, Bob, here, it sounds like this is what you need. Here's what we have. And so your B2B buyers are actually avoiding you. It makes sense though. There's nothing more annoying than a salesperson who doesn't listen and just wants to sell you stuff you don't need. The B2B buyer also has more anxiety than we've seen in buyers in the past. They're actually more nervous about what a purchase will mean for their reputation at work, for their career, because that complex purchase process and that expensive purchase has big implications. If the purchase goes wrong or goes awry, people are going to judge that Bob, that buyer, and think that they're not good at making decisions, and some of these purchases are quite expensive. So that buyer is nervous, they're anxious. Our buyers today are more anxious after the fact than we've ever seen. They have post-purchase anxiety or buyer's remorse. So we really need to instill confidence in the buyer. And there's a few ways that we can instill confidence in this nervous buyer. We can be more prescriptive and proactive rather than simply pushing a sales agenda. We can be in an advisory role, helping the prospect think about their business long term. And so by being in this helpful advisory role, we build trust, which makes the buyer more comfortable with us. So I'm talking about trust. I'm talking about buyer anxiety. These are things that are more emotional than rational. And organizations like Harvard have come out with studies that show the importance of considering these emotional aspects of the buyer rather than simply rational, because B2C has been very successful using these emotional insights to sell to customers, but B2B, for some reason, we forget that the buyer is a person just like you and me. So in this episode, you've learned a bit about the mind of the buyer, and hopefully you can use some of these lessons to apply to your own B2B selling process. This is Blake's Take. Would love for you to subscribe. Thanks for watching.